In my last video, I talked about ventures platform raising about $64 million to invest across Africa, and a portion of that fund was raised from Nigeria's iDICE program. So let's talk about it. Years ago, you probably saw the headline Nigeria is launching a $618 million tech and creative fund program. And you thought to yourself, what's it all about? That sounds huge, $680 million. But what does it actually mean? If you are a founder, you are an investor in Nigeria right now, what does that mean? Or let's even talk about what IDAS really mean. Is this just another big government announcement, or could this money actually move the needle for African startup scene or African startup ecosystem? So let's break it down. On March 14, 2023, the Nigerian government announced a $618 million fund under the program called iDICE. That stands for Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises. Nice name, iDICE. So iDICE is a structured investment program backed by a mix of Nigeria and international institutions. The Nigerian government through the Bank of Industry, the African Development Bank, the French Development Agency, and the Islamic Development Bank. So put it all together, we get about $618 million, massive headline number. So what is iDICE actually for? iDICE is a government initiative to promote digital innovation in two key areas, technology and the broader creative economy. We are talking about startups that are either fully tech or heavily tech enabled. So think about like software platforms, fintech, health tech, ed tech, but also creative sectors like creative sector businesses that rely on digital tools like production studio, animation, gaming, music tech, and content platforms, and more and more. So it's not just for startups directly. The program also targets like the ecosystem around them. So the ecosystem around startups include like accelerators, venture capital firms, private equity funds, and even private universities and polytechnics that are involved in innovation and entrepreneurship. So you could search iDICE and you could see like Covenant University come up. So instead of the government trying to pick individual startups winners, iDICE is designed to plug their money into a pipeline that already exists. So universities, innovation hubs, accelerators. Now, how does this money actually flow? Let's talk about that. And this is where it gets interesting. The iDES program will not be giving out cash directly from the government office. So instead, the fund will be disbursed through capital calls managed by three equity fund managers that will deploy the fund as three separate fund entities. So technology sector fund, creative sector fund, and a fund of funds that will cover indirect investment in both technology and the creative sector. So three different funds. So in simple terms, three independent fund managers will invest a portion of the $618 million into qualifying businesses. These managers will be responsible for finding, vetting, and backing startup in the tech and creative sectors that are in their early growth or their early or their growth stages. So if you're a founder and if you're a founder, you are not pitching to the Ministry of Finance. You are pitching actual fund managers whose job is to deploy capital and generate returns. So you're not going to Abuja to talk to someone in the government. It's the fund managers that you pitch to. So alongside them, iDAS is also looking for creative sector specialists to help design and implement programs specifically for the creative sectors or the creative industry. So the role and responsibility of the fund managers and these creative specialists have been laid out, so you can check it online. You can read about it. So this covers everything from pipeline building, due diligence, portfolio support to how capital calls and reporting will actually work. The idea is to bring more discipline and structure from the investment world into what is still a relatively young ecosystem. Now, who kicked this off? You've asked who is behind this iDICE program. The fund was launched by the then Vice President Yemi Oshibajo under the iDICE banner. It fits into a bigger push by the Nigerian government to position digital and creative industries as a growth engine for jobs and export. Creative sector give us Afrobeat. The initial plan was for the fund managers to disburse the fund within 4 years, with follow-on investment after that. The life of the fund will be like 10 years, I think, but also extended by 2 years if the need be. But on top of the iDICE program, the government also has talked about launching additional investment funds for Nigerian startups, which signals that They see this as a long-term play and not just one-off, strategy. So why does this really matter? Why should we all care about it? If you are a founder or you are a creative in Nigeria, raising capital is often the hardest part of the journey. Local investors are still relatively few. Foreign investors can be cautious, obviously, or only want to come in at a later stage. This creates a funding gap that, right where most of talent is, early stage and the growth stage companies, right? They're not yet big, but have serious potential. I really, really get to hate the word potential, but that is reality we are in right now. They have the potential, but they can't scale. So by working through equity fund managers and specialist partners, the program is trying to do three important things according to them. First, they're trying to increase the volume of capital available to the tech and creative sectors. Second, they want to push more of that capital into early stages where risk is higher, but the potential impact can be huge. Third, they want to build local investing capacity so that over time, Nigeria is not only producing startups, but also fund managers, accelerators, and institutions that understand how to back those startups and those founders. So, if this works, the impact could show up in a few ways. We get more startups getting to product market fit instead of dying at the idea stage because they don't have the capacity or the financing to get to product market fit before dying, before running out of cash. More creative businesses are able to invest in actually good equipment, good talent, and distribution. We'll have more structured fund and accelerators emerging, not just one-off programs like that last 3 years and disappears. And importantly, more local ownerships in the companies that will define Nigeria's digital future, which is the biggest, most important impact I see. Now, it is fair to be skeptical. Big ticket government funding programs across Africa have not always lived up to the press release or to the expectations. Implementation is everything. Will the right fund managers be selected? Yes, we have ventures platform as one, and we thank God for that. Will the capital actually reach founders outside the tiny inner circles as we are used to? Will the processes be transparent, predictable, and fast enough for startups to move quickly? These are valid questions. But on balance, I see this as a positive move. One, the money is not just local. Having institutions like, the African Development Bank and other international partners involved in this usually comes with extra scrutiny, timelines, and performance expectations. The model recognized that the best way to support startup is not just for government to act like a venture capitalist, but to empower people who already do that for a living. Three, the focus of both tech and creative economy matches what we are actually seeing on ground. Nigeria is not just a fintech story. It's also music, it's film, it's gaming, it's content, and the digital infrastructure that sits underneath all of that. So, from my perspective, this is a step in the right direction. Over the next few years, what will matter is not the headline numbers, but the portfolio. What startup got funded, which startup get backed, did they exit in 10 years? Did they exit in 5 years? Which creative businesses are able to grow because of this capital? How much of them are international now because they have ability to create, films and stuff? How many jobs and exports came out of the iDICE pipeline and more? Those are like the metrics we want to look at, right? These are the metrics that will tell us if this was just a nice launch event or the beginning of something that is transformational for Nigeria's digital and creative economy. For now, I'm cautiously optimistic. This is the kind of ambitious, structured funding that Africa ecosystem have been asking for a very long time. And it's good to actually see it happen. So if you want to keep following how programs like iDICE play out and you enjoy optimistic, honest African stories like this, make sure you follow for more.